Happy 2026, everyone. Today I'm going to be focusing on the pros and cons of college as someone who recently started college. So I want to talk about whether or not it's worth it for other people. There's so much pressure to go to college, I noticed, and my high school was not an exception. So I just want to start by saying each point will depend on where you go and what career you plan to have if you know at all. Some people don't. Let me know which one is the most compelling in the comments. With that out of the way, we can start. So let's start off with the pros. First, you often get the education you're promised. Obviously, some schools are better than others, but even at a cheap community college, I don't know if you'll get a bad education. Obviously, I can't speak for anyone who went to one, as well as an expensive private school, but I was told my cost to quality ratio was great, and I imagine that's the case with a lot of schools. Okay, number two, critical thinking skills. We are likely going to have a whole video on that because of some points we'll get to later. They're useful for navigating everyday life, and they help you know what's true and what isn't. They help you question things and show that not every system is black and white, not every system is perfect. 3. A sense of community. Colleges definitely value social interaction among their students, so you'll get a decent amount of opportunities for socialization, generally. 4th, freedom, or at least more of it. Remember, this is opposed to spending life at home with your family, or even getting kicked out, in which case it's definitely freedom, but not the kind you want at 18. So that's sometimes good. Not getting kicked out, but freedom. Sometimes good, sometimes bad, but independence is another good skill to learn, and you're gonna learn it a lot. You're gonna have a lot easier time learning it if you go to college. 5th, discovering what you're passionate about. Unless you already know your career and major the second you apply to that school, doing some searching isn't a bad thing. If you are catching what I'm saying, it's kind of underwhelming. There are a lot of strong reasons to go, but there aren't super many of them. I will say, should have put, I felt like this was too small to put on the pros list. You are allowed to have a more professional, but also a more. It's weird. It's like you can have an informal and professional relationship with your professor at the same time. They're a lot more approachable, and while they're not always gonna hunt you down for missing work, though some will, honestly, um, they'll they're there to help you, and yeah. For cons, we're gonna start off with a pretty obvious one: absurd pricing. Makes me wonder if any college is worth the price. It's worth the experience and skills, of course, but I don't think it's worth the cost. You're also paying back loans for years after you get your degree, but everybody probably already knows that. Second, you often have to live with a roommate or multiple. I shouldn't have done something so black and white. It's just pros and cons is a very simple way to go about it. This is a very nuanced point. The reason I'm putting it in cons is because there are a lot of things that could go wrong. There are many things schools will try to do to keep the roommate thing in order. They'll bump up the prices for housing if you want a single dorm. If you get lucky and end up with no roommate, they'll just move in someone with you. At my school, you can apply for an accommodation if you have medical reasons why you need a single, but even with 2 doctor's notes and multiple proofs of diagnoses, I still got rejected. The system is absolutely terrible from what I've experienced. They think they know better than PhD psychiatrists, but they just want money. I've also heard so many bad roommate stories that I'm convinced the system doesn't work. 3. Not sure about other schools, but where I go to a state school, we have to do fire drills. They're inconsistent, painfully loud, and I'm not exaggerating, my body gets so tense it physically hurts to do anything. They literally take attendance just like in high school. I heard rumors they'll hunt you down if you're not outside the building. Um, anyway, I know I'm an extreme example, so this probably isn't going to apply to everyone, but if you think it's gonna go in feeling different, honestly, I feel like I'm just living in high school. That was actually gonna be point number 4 from my personal experiences. I feel like I'm living in high school because of the class structures, the sizes, always big. Unless you went to a small school, you'll adjust in no time, and the way they just talk at you, that kind of thing. 5th, orientation is almost useless. Almost. I'm just gonna say it. So, for those of you who don't know what it's like, you're walking around to different buildings while people are giving different presentations about all the different opportunities. Socialization feels forced. You know almost no one, although my high school was big, so I saw at least 10 people from high school. Um, you probably won't have that same experience. There is valuable information, like how to contact the university police in an emergency, but so much of that information could have just been condensed down, and I'm not sure the school assembly vibe is the way to do this. You're doing this for 3 days, 5 to 6 hours a day. It's exhausting, and it feels like only some of the information is necessary. Number 6. My school had this thing where they would have mandatory meetings where they would once again talk at you about expectations and stuff. Well, the first one was like that. The second one was going over stuff for Christmas break. It's literally the same as Christmas break. So why do we need to force everyone to go just because you're mad maybe some people didn't leave their rooms in the ways you find convenient? Granted, most of the things they talk about are general fire safety concerns. That is absolutely necessary. But RAs doing room checks, really? Not only do I feel paranoid about it, but feels like an invasion of my privacy. I just paid a lot of money for that room, only to have to share it with someone else, and for them to expect it. Number 7. I don't like school administrations. I no longer trust them. And the reason comes with a story of its own. So you're allowed to bring an emotional support animal to school, but only one, and you need valid proof why you need one. This is at my school. The rule is probably different for different universities. The housing department was smart and put 2 people with emotional support animals together since they'd be comfortable with them. So there are 2 cats, an orange and a black one. They lived right across from me. Month or so passes by, everything seems good, I get to know the people in my hall. Then I exit my room one day and find a bunch of those same people in my hall outside talking about allegations by the black cat's owner. Supposedly they had been making inappropriate comments to people, and this person claimed they were ace. Although we were skeptical because one of the things they said to us was, "I'm ace, but women make me horny." Seemed to have been meant as a joke, but it was very strange and unwarranted. Um, so we were convinced they were using asexuality as an excuse to get away with making negative comments about other people, which, the way the system is now, can work because since you claim you're queer, you can't be accused of a hate crime, at least of your own people, allegedly. But it gets worse. Everyone in the hall basically is in a Discord server together, and this person, the Black Cat's owner, goes, I found a direct correlation between being queer and disabilities. And we were all like, we'd prefer if you don't elaborate. But they didn't listen, and didn't anyway, and didn't really have any research backing it up. They talked about how it was weird how 3 people from another hall were all in a threesome together. Is that the right word? Polyamorous relationship, 3 of them. Anyway, they all had disabilities requiring them to use canes. Listen, they made an observation. I'm not going to fault them for that. But they did extrapolate something that doesn't have evidence behind it and decided to spread it to everyone else. So they got mad and left the server after we called them out on it. That's still not all. Not everyone in the hall was in the loop about what was going on, what this person's doing. I knew some stuff because of overhearing things where people told me, but I didn't know everything because I was never harassed by this person. We had to hold an entire debrief meeting in secret so this person didn't know, and tell some people who maybe didn't experience anything what was going on. It took, I don't know, 2 hours to go through all the allegations. The harassment allegations were said to have been from the start of the semester, so right off the bat, although the debrief was a little complicated because of the fact that when reporting the allegations, the person who reported the allegations had to sign a non-disclosure agreement, so he was not allowed to talk about it. So his friend led the debrief. Another thing I didn't know until that debrief was potential animal cruelty against this black cat. There were complaints made to the RA about a strong, disgusting odor, and it turned out to be cat poop. Apparently this person was leaving their cat to live in their own filth. The reason I know this is because, not because they investigate it, why would they? But because I am friends with their roommate. The RA's excuse was, I couldn't smell it. So the administration is made aware of the allegations, and they offer the person with the orange cat immunity housing until they can figure out how to get more permanent housing. Then he moves up to the 3rd floor, so that good part goes according to plan. Well, their plan isn't the best. They gave his new roommate a day's notice that he'd be moving in and didn't tell them he had a cat he was taking care of. And guess what? After the one with the orange cat moved out, we still smelled the odor. So we know it wasn't him neglecting his orange cat. Also, I love him. He's looking to be a professional activist someday, so if Victor Poli gets famous, I can say I knew him in college. So what's this got to do with my hatred for the administration? Well, they gave the new roommate no notice, didn't update anyone on the investigation. That's pretty weird because I've watched enough Rotten Mango to know if you file a missing persons report, the police will come to you again and tell you if they think the missing person isn't alive. Well, my school didn't do this. They didn't update anyone on whether or not they'd take legal action. They didn't investigate the animal cruelty part of it. Alright, con number 8. We're gonna end with the least popular one, at least among people in America, and that's gen eds. Listen, gen eds are not a part of every country's curriculum. And the idea of making us take classes within certain parameters, that's not terrible, but it's not worth tens of thousands of dollars if that's all I'm taking. And yes, that was all I took my first semester. I know that won't be the case for all my semesters, but I don't feel like they're worth it. Do gen eds give you a quality education that you'll consistently use? Sometimes, but for the price, I don't think it's worth it. Plus, what is an intro to astronomy and physics class gonna do if I'm an English major? Unfortunately, I found finding research for this really hard because a lot of the sources are from 10 to 12 years ago. Yeah, it would be that now. Now that we're in 2026. But I did find one study that I don't believe I ended up using, but that study led me to a source that they used that not only perfectly explains my confusion and dislike for gen eds, but also ways going to college in general as well. So I'm gonna talk more about this source and I'm gonna read a paragraph from it just to give you guys an idea. I will link the full source down below, as I always do. This is from the Michigan Journal of Economics, specifically the language, science, and arts portion of it. So this is the University of Michigan, this is where the article was written. You take their LSA requirements. You need 120 credits with a cumulative GPA of 2, which is a C. A minimum of 60 credits must be completed at the college. So I'm a little bit off script here, but before I go into the article I was talking about, I'm going to elaborate more on something discussed in the article, but not fully. It was partially discussed in the article, but I'm just going to expand on it, and that is the gen ed requirement of the University of Michigan and the LSA College. So you have 120 total credits required. That's pretty standard. 100 LSA credit requirement, which gives you some leniency if you want 20 credits of non-LSA coursework that'll count for the degree. However, further down, it says 60 credits outside your major department. Now keep in mind, this is literature, science, and the arts. So encompassing almost the entire English field, the entire science field, and as a result, most of the math field, and a lot of the art and music and theater and whatever your fine arts are. So because LSA is so broad, and LSA is basically your just liberal arts college, because some universities there's a university and there's a college. Colleges and universities are often used interchangeably, but college can mean a subsect of a university. And the university is like the institution itself. So just wanted to clarify that for those who don't know. So again, LSA, literature, science, arts, that's going to be often referred to as a liberal arts college. So that's basically for people who don't know what they want to do a broad thing. Let's say you go to this LSA college and you're initially not sure what you want to do. Well, you're basically bound by your gen eds and your requirements for the degree for the most part. Again, 60 credits outside major department. That is half your credits. When you declare at the end of your sophomore year, generally, half of those can't be in your major. they can be in language, science, and arts credit, but you're going to have 40 that don't overlap with your major, which basically means you're taking more gen eds. Because if you're like me, you want the English concentration, you'd pick an English major in the school, and you still have 40. I get 60 credits. Say I went to this school, I get 60 credits in the English field. That counts for half of my total credits required. So there's a minimum of 60 credits I can get in my major, because I need 60 outside my major. So let's assume I get all 60 credits in my major, in my English major. Now I need 40 more credits outside my major, but within LSA, to get the requirement. I would need 40 credits worth of science. For simplicity's sake, we'll just say math because they overlap. And the arts, which I'm guessing. Oh, science can also include like social sciences. So like your sociology, psychology, criminal justice is a science. I don't know if philosophy is considered a science, but it's in the humanities area, so that's would also cover that. If not in the arts, it's gonna get covered somewhere, is the point. Well, my point is the rest of those 40 credits are very broad, to the point where you're basically taking half your degree is just gen eds. 2 out of your 4 years. If you look at where I'm looking at, and I will link, again, I'm going to link this so that you can look at it. And again, they have you need half your 120 credits to be completed at the college, so that you say you're officially going to that college. But let's get in, now that we got into the credit requirements, let's get into like the gen eds. You have a first year writing requirement that you need to take, so, which makes sense because you need to do a lot of writing in college. Didn't really get to go over that earlier in the video, but if you do not like writing, if you are not good at writing, you have to do a lot of it in college. So you have your first year writing requirement. So say you're taking 15 credits, 5 classes a semester. One of those has to be a writing requirement. So already off the bat, they're telling you one class you have to take your first semester or your first year. You have an upper level writing requirement. It says you're teaching typical and academic and professional contexts. It's going to build on skills in your first writing course, essentially. So that's a second reading course that you need to take. You have your race and ethnicity requirement. Different schools will call it different things. You have my school called it a DEI, technically DEISJ, diversity, equity, inclusion, social justice. So that's going to be the same thing. Quantitative reasoning, that's just math. I don't know why they do that. AP credit may not be used to meet the math requirement. So not all schools are gonna accept your AP credits, so it may not be worth taking them in high school. Language requirement. This is very standard throughout college. You have a lot of a foreign language requirement. You can do to get out of it is if your first language is not English and you attended a high school where English was not the language of instruction, you met the requirement because they're assuming you're fluent in that language and you're fluent in English, which you don't even have to be. As long as you have passable English to work in the college, or not work, like attend the college. And they have a lot of languages that you can choose from. You can take Yoruba, I don't even know what that is. You can take Tamil, Swahili, you can take Sanskrit, which I'm pretty sure is only written. Nahuatl, which I'm pretty sure is in it's one of the it's a Spanish speaking countries, like their indigenous people's languages, if I'm not mistaken. And you have your normal ones like Italian, German, French, Spanish. So and American Sign Language, really nice that they have that. So they have a lot more language opportunities than my school does. Then you have your area distribution requirement. LSA seeks to instill an understanding of an appreciation of all majors of learning. Students are not expected to master all areas, but they should develop a coherent view of essential concepts, structures, and intellectual methods. Basically, this sounds like what you did in high school. I see no need. Like, they're listening here. Natural sciences, social sciences, humanities, math, creative expression, so like English stuff. You're already doing that in high school. I see no need why you have to pay tens of thousands of dollars for all of this, honestly. But that's just my personal opinion. So we're going to get the opinion of someone who works at the University of Michigan, specifically for the Michigan Journal of Economics. And they use the LSA College requirements as an example. So I'm gonna read from that just a moment, but just one little funny thing that I want to point out is after going briefly into the gen ed requirements of the LSA college, he mentions Adam Smith, none other than Adam Smith, and his theory of specialization, which, if you like capitalism, is honestly a valid point. People are able to produce more efficiently if they specialize in respective tasks. This is what who's the author? Nicholas Costa. This is what he says on the matter. So I'm gonna just go over the article. Talks about how it's the gen ed system's not present in every country. In Europe, it says is not. It's pretty much non-existent. we love to see in parentheses some of the sources he got it from. The United States is one of the few countries that require undergraduate degrees in order to gain admission into medical, law, and other professional schools. So there's that. You have to pay for a bachelor's degree, and then you can't get into law school, medical school, unless you got your 4-year degree first. And remember, half of that, from what we establish, again, the percentages are going to vary based on the university and the specific college you're in. But in this example we're using, we already established half of that is gen eds. So 2 of your 4 years are going to be spent on your gen eds, meaning if you want to go to medical school, 2 years are going to be spent on that pre-med track. Like, he's just a writer for the Michigan Journal of Economics. So I guess just trust him the way you would trust any technical writer. But this is, granted, this is an article that's essentially contradicting the values of the LSA. So, hey, I mean, props to them for allowing criticism to seep through, and constructive at that. So he makes the point that there's every year spent in college is one less year in the workplace, being productive. He does talk about how you can bridge the gap, you can like make that time up with your education, but that's not always the case. And he doesn't think that this education justifies it. So now we're going to go back into specialization. We already talked about the Adam Smith thing, but colleges claim that their extensive graduation requirements are designed at creating well-rounded graduates with knowledges of many different disciplines. Well, this sounds great. Is this well-roundedness worth the expense of additional time added to a college education? This is what this technical writer, I'm assuming, from what I found from Google, is asking. And from his personal experience, 41%, so a bit less than what we calculated, and 41% have been in the major, 22% have been in the minor. So we're going to assume that this person's using both their major and their minor in their job. So let's assume that 2/3, we're going to give a rough estimate here, 2/3 are relevant to the job. And 37%, nearly as much as his major, were on gen eds. Not including math courses, because this is probably his major. He says most college students have had a similar experience. I'm assuming he must have like interviewed people, or at least like talked to friends about this. I'm gonna give him the benefit of the doubt for that. This point he brings up next, golden. This is what the reason I've spent so long rambling. This is why we're getting to it, because I felt we needed the context and the build up to this. So he says, think about it. Do you care whether your surgeon is well versed in Shakespeare's Hamlet or the philosophical works of Immanuel Kant? Well, this might be nice when it comes to producing goods and services, we all prefer specialization. Given the choice, I'd rather have my surgeon have taken an extra course in medicine as opposed to English literature. We would rather prefer people have a basic knowledge of every discipline for everyday life, but in-depth knowledge in their respective trade. And he talks about how different majors have different leeway for their requirements. So if you go to the College of Engineering at the University of Michigan, by the way, I don't know much about this school. I'm not trying to say, like, this is not where I go, by the way. I go to school far from here, but, and if you know me, I would never go to Michigan because it's too cold there. I would probably do it in the summertime. Anyway, compared to the LSA, engineering has a lot fewer requirements. Because there's a recognition that rigor involved in engineering necessitates that students give up reading Hamlet in order to be better versed in mathematics or physics. These people are responsible for creating the buildings we live in, the software we use, and the utilities we all need to survive. Yeah. So I guess his point is, why don't we apply that to everything? Why don't we have I'm going to use this as an example because what I wanted to go into when I went to college was book editing. So I chose an English major, and I guess as a personal preference, I would rather be able to explain to my clients that I took 4 years of English courses than 2 years of English courses and the rest gen eds. Some of them are going to help. Some of them are going to help you with your major. Some of them are going to help you subconsciously. For example, as a book editor, taking a sociology class, that's going to help you with, that's going to help you. I love how I have to think about this. It's going to help you with studying society and studying sociology, especially like current sociology. You're studying the industry at the moment, how the industry changes. The book industry I'm giving an example for, but you could use sociology for pretty much any industry. That is not a bad idea. But math and science, again, unless you're going specifically into it, like, let's say, let's take teaching, for example. Elementary school, you're doing everything. So we're going to ignore them because they need those gen eds. They need those, they need to be well-versed in pretty much everything, granted at a lower level. Oh yeah, middle and high school teachers. So you have that. They need to be well-versed in their field. And this applies to college professors as well. College professors, you realize, also had to take almost half their courses as gen eds. And they're teaching about their specific field. Not half their courses because they, masters and PhD. I don't know a lot about that. So consult something else for that specifically, but also just consult another video or another website other than this video, because this is just looking at some aspects of it. I can't go in depth, and we're also nearing 45-minute mark, so I want to be able to get through this. We don't have too much left to go. Talks about price, potential social inequality, how black people are generally poor but still have to pay the same amount. Basically, he's saying our society would be better, at least if we claim to be a capitalist one, more people would be able to pursue an education because college would be cheaper because we're spending less. We're not paying money for gen eds. We're increasing specialization and productivity, so that's going to help our country's exports, our GDP. And again, he's making the point that that's going to help you as a whole country and increase wages of low skilled labor. Sorry, and those are the people who are more likely going to be in poverty. He even gives a solution. So we're gonna go more in depth with that. One writing class, one math class, one science class, and one social science or ethnicity related class should suffice, but nothing like the foreign language, your DEI, because social science and DEI is merged. In other schools, they're two separate things. So that would increase specialization or pursue a complementary minor to their studies. General educations should be able to be completed within a semester, not within 2 years. Again, the 60 credit non-major requirement. I'm pretty sure this is what my school also has. That's half your degree can't be within your major. It's required. His solution, I imagine, in my solution, which would go off of, I guess, do we even need a requirement that you can't take more than 60 credits in your major? Because it's your major. Like, this is what you're going to be doing, likely. And if you don't, then, listen, I know sometimes education majors will get any degree they want, because any bachelor's they want, because they know they need the master's in education anyway, which is fair. I imagine his solution and my solution wouldn't completely get rid of this system we have right now. Like, it would still be an option. You say, hey, you don't know what you want to do, spend your first year taking general classes, find out what you want to do, then spend the other 3 getting within your major. And his solution basically already does that with the semester of gen ed stuff, which I don't even know if I'd say require it for undecided majors. Don't require it for certain majors. Get that extra level of specialization. But of course, I would not be mad if his solution was implemented. Sadly, I don't think it will be in the near future. I'm going to go over the sources too. Again, feel free to and just read this if you want, because we need to make sure we need to go over this source, make sure it's valid. He only has 3 sources. It's from 2022, pretty recent. Even though it's in 3 months, it'll be 4 years old, but whatever. So how bachelor's degrees in the US and Europe differ. Very good. And then most of this, again, is just professional opinion. But I say professional because this is likely a technical writer. Go and consult other sources about this. And as a result, and unless this system changes, I don't think it's worth it. I mean, personally, I've had a lot of trouble in the workforce. So I don't see the need to pay all that money when I'm gonna be in the workforce anyway. But now I'm realizing, I don't have to be, I can do this full time if I get good enough. And also, please give me your feedback. If you stayed this long, thank you so much. Make my more off script, not a lot of editing, cutting down, recording, or do you prefer I stick to a script? Because depending on my topic, I'm going to do a little bit of it'll depend. But I like writing scripts. I like the idea of staying organized because you see how I am when I'm not doing that. I'm not trying to be clickbaity. We're gonna go back to the initial question of whether or not in 2026 it's worth going to college. The short answer is it depends, and we already gave the long answer. Personally, with my track, I don't think so, but you're gonna have a different answer than me. So, again, consult another source or 10 before you make your decision. I recommend everybody do this because this is a decision that literally changes your life, even though it takes 4 years. It determines what kind of job you get. And you're going to be working that job for 30 or so years. No, I'm closer to 40. Depends on the job. But anyway, thank you for watching. Thank you for sticking by for an hour at this more in-depth look of college, and plan to make a video on critical thinking, the importance of that, and the importance of questioning things in general. And let me know any other suggestions. I'll definitely pull from my 6-minute video about why I haven't uploaded, because that one also lists a ton of video ideas. So feel free to pull from that, suggest it. I'll do what you suggest. I'll prioritize that.